What's your experience with the residential schools?
I was in the residential school for 11 years in Joussard, and it was horrible, horrible, horrible at the beginning because when we started school in the mission, we didn't know how to speak English. We didn't understand English. It was
Completely foreign.
yeah. So I went to residential school when I was 6 years old. 6, and I turned 7 in November. And I was in there till 11, for 11 years. But I did complete grade 11 there. It was very, very horrible. Too horrible to even talk about. Like, it was unreal, but we had to learn to adjust. And we had to learn to follow rules. We were being, the happiest days of my life was before I went to the mission because I was able to be me. And they just turned us around to be somebody else. We could not even talk to our siblings. We would get whipped
Was that because you were speaking Cree or because you were speaking English?
because we were speaking Cree. Not all of us in our family spoke Cree. We didn't know how to speak English.
How many children in your family were forced into residential school?
All of us.
Um, and then it's your turn to be in residential school. How did that affect your father?
He was very upset, but there was nothing. They even threatened to take him to jail.
If he didn't let you go to school?
Yes, because he took one of my brothers out because my one of my brothers was disabled, and he was threatened. The police threatened to put him in jail. The government threatened to put him in jail.
So let's start with your first day in residential school. How did you get to the school? Did they come and get you by horse and buggy? How did they take you to the school?
They came and got us in a caboose.
With the train?
No, in a vehicle
Ah,
caboose,
okay.
and they put us all in there, and we used to hide. Every time a white person came to the house, we would hide because they would look. We hid in the cellar because my mom and dad were afraid they would come and get us because they didn't understand what my mom and dad didn't speak English either.
So they round up all of you children and they take you to school. What's your first day like? What happened? Do you
Nothing.
remember?
Cried and cried and cried because
Did
I
they
didn't even understand. Oh, they made us change our clothes. They gave us other clothes.
so they gave you like a uniform to wear?
Yeah,
And what about your hair?
cut it.
They cut it off?
Oh, yeah, they cut our hair. It was horrible, horrible, horrible.
Who were the? Do you remember the nuns that ran Joussard? Do you remember who your teachers were?
Some of them, but I don't remember all of them.
When you think of those teachers, was there any of them that tried to be kind at all?
In the later years, when I was in high school, they were nice to me, but not when elementary. They were well. There was one teacher, Sister Denise Helen. She was very nice. She was a teacher in grade 2.
kind of martial law did you have to put up with? Like, did they, like so many children, did you experience the ruler or the pointer? How did they treat you in the class?
Ruler and a strap in front of everybody so everybody could see you cry.
So they
Is
loved
that
the
what you
public.
mean?
They liked to publicly humiliate you.
Yeah, in front of everybody. And another thing too, when I used to get humiliated was, okay, the girls were separate. There was about 60 of us, and the boys were separate. They had a separate side of the building,
Right.
and I used to pee my bed. I used to wet my bed, and I had no control over it. So what they used to do to me to humiliate me was they would come and pull my blankets off early in the morning, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning, and just if my bed was wet, they would just whip me and make me walk to the bathroom with all my wet blankets. And that carried on through right till I was a teenager. And they didn't take me to a hospital or nothing, but that was the biggest thing. And the other kids used to laugh at me. And that's what the nuns, that's the worst thing that I kept. But now, let it go.
How long was it before you were able to go home? Were you able to go home for holidays to see your parents at all?
Not till, not till grade 4 or 5.
So you were separated from your family for 4 years before you were able to see them again, other than the children that were in residential school but you couldn't talk to.
Yeah.
Were you aware of the beatings and the sexual abuse that was going on with some of the children in your school?
I saw lots of children get beaten for nothing. And there, I didn't know anything about sexuality. And there was times when some girls would be taken out of our classroom or out of the bedroom, out of our dormitory, and we never saw them again. And then there was some girls that were kept upstairs in the dormitory all the time instead of going to school, and they weren't even sick. So we didn't know what was going on, and that lady was from Sucker Creek, and she never ever told me why they were there, why she was kept upstairs.
What do you think in your heart made those nuns so mean?
First of all, I feel, or kind of figured it out. I believe some of those nuns were men, and they just
Wore the habit but were actually men.
that's what I think. Now that I think of them, and I don't think of them, but what I remember of them, how masculine they were, and little whiskers. Because I was there for 11 years, but I got adapted to their way of life so I wouldn't be beaten.
When you say adapted, what was your typical day like?
I went to church. I went to church every morning. I prayed all day. I would go in the chapel and pray instead of playing. I would follow rules. I would do what they said just so I don't get.
And then, when you got to finally leave residential school, how did your life change?
I took my grade 12. I took my grade 12 in High Prairie, but I went day school from my mom and dad's house. I went to grade 12 in High Prairie, and then I carried on school. I moved to Edmonton and went to school, finished, did my business education.
And what did you do later on in life for a bit? Like, what kind of work did you choose to do?
Social work.
And the reason why you chose social work?
To help the tractor because of all my abuse. And to, I went through so much through all my life, and I'm a survivor. And I went back. Second time I went to school, I became a social worker. And then I did social work practice all these years. I retired 2 years ago.
When did you start picking up your culture again?
When I left the mission. When I left the mission.
Like 17 years old when you started learning your culture again?
Yeah, 19.
19.
When I came back home.